wow, this looks really harsh. Hello everyone, my name is Petey, and today we're going to be looking at another seemingly strange commandment in the Bible, and that is the stoning of a rebellious child. Is this commandment strange or just? Let's find out. Alright, it starts here in Deuteronomy 21:18, 4 verses, and it explains, if a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and though they discipline him, he will not listen to them, then his father and mother shall take a hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his city at the gate of the place he lives. And they shall say to the elders, this is our son, stubborn, rebellious, he will not obey our voice, he's a glutton and a drunkard. Then all of the men of that city shall stone him to death with stones, so shall you purge the evil from your midst, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Alright, so there's a few things we need to look at here. I mean, it kind of seems really like, for many of us in today, it could look like, wow, this looks really harsh. Let's look at some of the facts here. It's talking about a child who's got a deep-seated, ongoing rebellion. This is not a once-off situation. He's not heeding to any discipline of his parents. He is rebelling deeply. These are also serious sins. They describe him as being a glutton and a drunkard, for example. They also then brought the child to judges. In other words, this was not just an internal household affair. Like, they actually were so serious about how serious this boy's sins are that they felt they needed to bring him to the judges of that city. And then it says that this is all done to purge evil from the midst of Israel. All right, now the first thing that we need to look at here is why? And how could this be just? You know, one of the things that I think we often do is we like to judge from our own perspective of how severe certain offenses are. And so we see drunkenness or gluttony as not that big of a deal in modern society today. And so we say, well, so to kill someone for doing that is just out of balance. That just doesn't make any sense. But could it be that your perception of how serious sin is warped? Could it be that you don't consider it as serious as God does? Could it be that God actually considers these sins worthy of receiving a death penalty for, and that sin of not just being a drunkard or a glutton, but continuous rebellion against parents and society as a whole? If we consider it's not a big deal, we will say this is out of order. But if we took the lenses of God and saw this sin for what it is, perhaps it won't be so far from us to say that this is what is the justice that is to be done there. And this same goes for the sin of adultery. Adulterers were also receiving a death penalty if they were caught and found out and brought to judges, and all of the procedures were correctly followed and so forth. Because God views adultery as a sin worthy of the death penalty. Today, we don't at all, right? We barely even see most. Depending on where you live, your government may not even see murder or being a serial killer as being worthy of the death penalty. Ultimately, though, here's something that we have to take a step back and realize regarding this specific commandment about the stoning of a rebellious child. This has actually never been recorded as ever having happened. This law has never, as far as we have recording of, and we have a lot of recording of these events, we have no record of this actually being followed through. Because typically parents have been, it's not that we haven't had children that have been sinners, but parents have typically leaned on grace, and even judges have the right to lean on grace and decide to not apply the full extent of a judgment even if that authority and power has been given to them. Just like any judge today, you can stand before him and you can actually show great remorse, and he can lessen the penalty because you show great remorse and because you have been upfront about recognizing your sin. So these laws are given as this is the furthest extent of what a judge can do regarding a certain offense. But of course, a judge has the ability to give grace, and even the parents, the accusers, have the ability to give grace. And so that's the same way today. We can decide to not lay charges when someone has wronged us, or we can decide to take them to court. But ultimately, what we do learn from all of this is how serious God actually does take these sins, and that they're not to be taken as lightly as we sometimes like to take them, but that they are actually worth the death penalty. And for us, I think that's worth being quiet about, because quiet and meditative about, because that means that when we stand before God with our sin of adultery of the heart, when we stand before God with our sin of being a gossip and a busybody, things that society tells us is no big deal, don't worry. Be mindful that to God this is a big deal, and that if full justice were to be served, we would all inherit Gehenna. We will be separated from God forever. But because of what Yeshua has done in redeeming us and saving us, we must respond with repentance. We must respond with a turning from sin, because ultimately that's how we enter his forgiveness. And so grab a hold of the forgiveness that's been given to you, but turn from your sin. And if this teaching has blessed you, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Shalom.